In the 1960s, California's fields stretched for miles, filled with laborers who picked the fruits and vegetables that fed the nation. But most of these workers lived in poverty, worked long hours in the sun, and had no voice to demand better treatment. Among them, leaders like Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Larry Itliong saw the injustice and refused to remain silent. They understood that small acts of courage could inspire larger change. Dolores Huerta is still an activist and continues to work at age 95. They organized workers, united communities, and sparked a revolution that would change the lives of farm laborers forever. The United Farm Workers movement transformed labor rights in America by organizing migrant farm workers, challenging exploitation through nonviolent activism, and proving that collective action can create lasting social change. This documentary will be all about it. Before the United farm workers endured harsh, often dangerous conditions with little hope for change. Many workers face exploitation daily and struggle to survive while feeding the nation. Most of these farm workers were migrants from either Mexico or the Philippines, and they traveled from farm to farm in search of work. Seasonal changes dictated their lives and uprooted entire families repeatedly. They lived in temporary camps, which were small, crowded shacks with dirt floors, no running water, and little protection from the elements. Families often shared a single room, and children were expected to help in the fields instead of attending school. This photo shows the migrant workers toil in the fields under the harsh sun. The work was grueling. Laborers spent 10 to 12 hours a day bending over crops exposed to extreme heat or rain. Wages were extremely low, sometimes less than $1 an hour, and pay was often calculated by how many boxes or rows a worker could harvest. Injuries were common, but there was no health care or compensation. Workers had no legal protections. Growers controlled jobs and housing, and those who complained risked termination or eviction. Local authorities often sided with farm owners, and previous attempts to form unions had mostly failed. Strikes were broken with hired security or police intervention, and leaders were threatened, arrested, or beaten. Yet, despite these horrid conditions, farm workers started to persevere. Quiet organizing began within their communities. Leaders recognized that collective action was the only path to justice. Meetings were held in small homes, churches, and community centers, and word spread slowly but steadily across the fields. By the early 1960s, the need for change was urgent. The stage was set for a movement that would fight not just for wages, but for dignity, safety, and respect. A revolution that would echo across the nation. In 1962, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta came together to form the National Farm Workers Association, or NFWA. Their mission was to organize and empower farm laborers who faced low pay, poor conditions, and unfair treatment in the fields. Through unity and determination, they sought to bring hope and strength to Mexican-American workers who had long been denied a voice. At the same time, Larry Itliong led the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, representing Filipino farm laborers. In this photo, you can see Itliong in the middle of the men and Cesar Chavez on the right. In September 1965, Filipino grape workers in Delano, California, went on strike for fair pay. A week later, Chavez and Huerta's workers joined them, forming a powerful alliance. Together, they launched the Delano Grape Strike, a movement that would last more than 5 years. The strike brought national attention to the injustices farm workers face daily. On the screen is a map of California and different major cities, including Delano. The United Farm Workers marched throughout all of California, and even embarked on a 300-mile march from Delano to the state's capital, Sacramento. Thousands of workers walked off the fields. They organized marches, rallies, and picket lines, refusing to pick grapes until growers agreed to better conditions. Many families risked everything to join the cause. The strike gained national attention, and millions of Americans joined a boycott of table grapes, refusing to buy them until fair contracts were signed. This support gave workers a short-term boost in bargaining power, showing that collective action could create immediate impact. Here are some posters that were made by boycotters at the time. Chavez promoted nonviolent protest, inspired by Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., as workers faced threats and violence but never fought back.
What has happened in Salinas in the last week is a great treason against the aspirations of those men and women who have sacrificed their lives for so many years to make a few men rich in this valley. It's especially tragic that another labor union should lend itself to this kind of conspiracy to keep the farm worker from their rightful representation by the union that they so overwhelmingly want.
In 1966, hundreds of marchers walked 340 miles from Delano to Sacramento, carrying the red and black eagle flag of the UFW. This march marked a turning point in the movement, symbolizing unity and determination. The slogan echoed across the nation. Sí, se puede, meaning yes, we can. The long-term effect of this revolution was the foundation for ongoing labor reforms, and this very slogan later inspired Barack Obama's 2008 campaign motto, yes, we can. The UFW's revolution faced fierce and relentless opposition. Growers fought back with every tool at their disposal. They hired strikebreakers, used intimidation, and pressured law enforcement into disrupting and silencing the movement. Yet, the workers' determination only grew stronger. Strikers were arrested, threatened, and sometimes beaten. Families faced eviction or lost their jobs, suffering simply for demanding fair treatment. In the video shown, Dolores Huerta is seen being arrested alongside SEIU protesters, proof that the same struggle for dignity and justice continues today. Meanwhile, support for the movement grew. Students, churches, labor unions, and consumers across the country joined the Grape Boycott. They refused to buy grapes until farm workers' demands were met.
So without further ado, won't you please welcome our keynote speaker, the amazing Dolores Huerta. Dolores!
Critics argue that the strikes hurt businesses or raised food prices, but the UFW's message spread across the United States. Farm workers deserve dignity, safety, and fair pay, and people from all walks of life joined in strong and determined solidarity, each of them recognizing the struggle as a fight for justice and basic human rights. In 1968, Cesar Chavez undertook a 25-day fast to recommit to nonviolence and draw attention to the cause of farm workers. This powerful act of personal sacrifice inspired national leaders, including Robert F. Kennedy, brought widespread media attention, and strengthened the movement's credibility and influence across the country. The UFW had ignited both support and opposition, demonstrating that true reform often provokes resistance. These reactions shaped short-term challenges, but ultimately reinforced the long-term significance of the movement. The UFW's revolution eventually led to meaningful reform. The successful strikes and contracts represented another turning point, as growers finally recognized the union and agreed to better wages, clean water, toilets in the fields, and rest breaks. The movement also influenced laws protecting farm workers from unsafe conditions and pesticide exposure. By organizing, striking, and boycotting, workers proved that change was possible, and farm workers were no longer oppressed. Beyond labor laws, the UFW inspired many other movements, showing that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary results when they stood together. Their efforts expanded the idea of human rights to include the right to safe, fair work. Movements inspired by the UFW include the Latino Civil Rights Movement, the Movement for Immigrant Rights, and the Asian American Labor Movement. Today, the UFW continues advocating for farm workers, reminding the world that reform is ongoing and that justice requires both courage and persistence. The long-term impact of the movement is seen in modern labor advocacy and ongoing policy improvements. The United Farm Workers' struggle began in California's fields but inspired an entire nation. Their fight proved that courage, unity, and nonviolence can overcome injustice, a lasting reminder that sí, se puede, yes, we can.